Buckle your seatbelt. It's time for another episode of the Prepper Recon podcast. Whether your plan is to bug out or bug in, CampingSurvival.com has all of your preparedness needs, including fish antibiotics, long-term storage food, and water filters. Use coupon code PrepperRecon for 5% off your order at CampingSurvival.com.
Get prepared before disaster strikes. PrepperRecon.com offers MOLLE-compatible individual first aid kits for your home, auto, or bug-out bag. These kits have everything you need to address a traumatic injury, including an Israeli battle dressing, quick clot, EMT shears, suture kit, steri strips, tourniquet, tough strip bandages, and so much more. $99 includes shipping. Go to PrepperRecon.com and click the store tab at the top of the home page. Order today before it's too late.
Today's guest is Jason York of UrbanRefugeGardening.com. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, absolutely. Pleasure to have you on. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about UrbanRefugeGardening.com?
Yes, so that is my website. It's a business that I started less than a year ago, but the concept itself, I actually developed the product really for my personal use about 5 years ago. And the reason why I did that is I grew up in Southern California. My dad had a produce business. I grew up around the highest quality produce money could buy. And of course, it had been many years since that time. I got married. I wanted to grow my own produce for sustainability reasons, but also just to gain higher quality produce. And all I had was an apartment balcony. It happened to face the sun, so that was a huge plus. So I really started looking at what on the market was available to grow. And I came to the conclusion you have to do a container, some sort of container type system. But I didn't find anything out there that had the quality that I was looking for. Nothing was large enough to sustain full-size plants. Nothing had a big enough water reservoir to sustain, full-size plants. And that's what I wanted to grow. I didn't want any limitations on what I could grow. I wanted tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, even to try things like corn and watermelon and, really any size plant. So I've basically, through lots of thinking and walking around, different stores, just trying to rack my brain of how I could develop a system that works. And that's ultimately what I did.
Well, that's fantastic. How much space would we need to use one of your systems?
I mean, I had a really small balcony. My balcony was probably 5 feet deep by 10 feet or so. And at the time, I had 4 of my containers on that balcony growing 7-foot tomato plants.
Wow. So it's scalable. So you could put, if you've got a really small balcony, you could do 2. If you've got a larger one, 4 or 6 or whatever. And then perhaps maybe somebody who's got like a little bitty, maybe one of those like little patio backyards. I guess they could do maybe 10 or 15 of them, huh?
Correct. Yep. I mean, it's only limited by space. And with my latest design, I've engineered the ability to daisy chain the units together. So if you do have 6 units or 10 units or even a greenhouse full of them, you can connect a hose to one end, fill up all the reservoirs. The water will naturally flow from one container to the other. And then when all the reservoirs are full, water will spill out the container on the end of the line. So it's a very effective way to water, whether you have, 6 or dozens of units.
And talk to us a little bit more about what types of foods we can grow in one of your systems.
So there's obviously different categories of plants. There's things like herbs and, flowers and very small things, and you can, you can totally grow that in a container. And I have 2 sizes of my refuge garden. The smaller size would definitely be better suited for the smaller herbs and lettuces and things like that. But a lot of people also want to grow tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, bell pepper, jalapeno, or any other large size plant. In the larger container, it has a 7-gallon water reservoir. That's enough water for 3 to 4 days, even for full-size tomato plants. And that's also going to be enough growing medium as well for full-size plants. So about 3 cubic feet of potting soil will fit in the larger container. So you could grow, to my knowledge, pretty much anything in them. If you wanted to, do potatoes or, throw, 12 corn stalks in there or, kind of whatever you want.
And then the water reservoirs that you have on there, is that something that could be attached to a rain catch system?
Absolutely. So you would have to do one of two things. Either have a valve on the rain barrel, so that, the gravity fed from the rain barrel, wouldn't just fill all the reservoirs and then continue spilling out the tip. So you would either every few days just loosen the valve on the rain barrel, refill the reservoirs, watch till they fill up and turn the valve off. Or if you wanted it completely automated, you'd have to have a float valve, in like a 5-gallon bucket or something in between the rain barrel and all the containers. And then you'd have to, play around with where the float valve is and the settings to get it to automatically start filling when the water drops below a certain level and stop once it fills them up.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. The dollar's lost over 90% of its purchasing power since 1971. Silver, on the other hand, has proven to be a very stable form of wealth preservation over the years. And where do you buy silver? Silver.com, of course. Silver.com offers fantastic prices on gold and silver. Check out Silver.com today. Ready Made Resources is a trusted name in the prepper community because they've been around for 18 years. They offer great prices on night vision, water filtration, long-term storage food, solar energy components, and provide free technical service. Get ready for an uncertain future at ReadyMadeResources.com. And then are your systems, are they pretty much idiot-proof? I mean, is it something that somebody with very, very low technical skills would be able to figure out? Does it come with instructions? And do you offer customer support?
Yes. So my personal email and cell phone number are readily available from the website, also from my business cards and flyers. And I do have a double-sided instruction sheet with pictures showing you how to set it up and fill it and whatnot. And I also, at this point, I have one video on the website on how to tie up your plants as they grow. But this spring, as I'm growing my own plants, I'll continue to update that with more videos. And I'll actually have a video showing you how to assemble it. And I'll put that up on the website soon as well.
Oh, fantastic.
So, it's still, gardening is gardening, so there's still going to be a learning curve for if you've never touched a plant, if you've never touched the dirt before, there'll still be some basic things that, that people need to learn as far as, how to take care of a plant. But this is the easiest it could be.
Yeah, and I think there's a learning curve with everything you do. We talked about that a little bit before the show. And I feel bad for the folks that think they're going to buy one of those survival seed vaults, which I think is a good thing to have. But I think if you're going to buy one, I think you should buy two and store one and take the other one and get the seeds out and start growing something now. Find out what's going to grow in your area. Find out what's going to grow in your climate. And find out which out of that stuff is not very realistic that you're not going to be able to produce, because you're probably going to have a little trouble if you're trying to grow like corn on a balcony. So, that's one of those things that right now, while the stores are still open and fully stocked, those mistakes don't really cost you that much right now. But if it's something that you're depending on for a survival situation, you need to get past that learning curve, because those mistakes and that learning experience is going to be much, much more expensive on the other side of some type of a catastrophic event. So I definitely encourage folks to get in there and get their hands dirty and start trying this stuff out right now. Would you agree with that?
That's absolutely right. I mean, even one of my customers did that same thing. She's an elderly lady. She's I don't know if she's 60 yet, but somewhere around there. And, she owns, My Refuge Garden. And she had a seed vault that had been sitting in her, I don't know if it was a refrigerator or something, for like 2 to 5 years. She had never even opened it. She didn't even know how to open it. And, she asked me to help her open it. And she lays out all these packets of seeds. And in the vault, there's no instructions. So she had to Google how to grow, how deep to plant, what time to plant it, how to harvest it. All those details weren't even in the seed vault. And she had to, basically she's like, well, I need to start learning, how to grow these different types of plants. And she was going to do that, at least in part with, the Refuge Garden that she owned. So I totally agree. Whether you're young or old, it's just the same principle. You need to learn how to do it, and you need to do it now.
And I suppose somebody that's in an apartment, they're never going to be able to realistically produce 100% of their own food. But let's say we do have some type of a survival situation where you're forced to start living on all those beans and rice that you've been storing up. Having something fresh, being able to produce something fresh, maybe it's 2 or 3 tomatoes a day, or a little, a few green beans, or some basil or oregano, or what a cucumber, something like that. Where if you're able to add one fresh item to your plate every day, that's really going to be a big game changer as far as your quality of life. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And it's something that it's a morale booster, to have something fresh that you can have every day. And that's also something that you can trade with your neighbor. If you have a week where you're picking 3 dozen tomatoes and you can't use them all, that's something you can, hand off to somebody as a gift, or trade with them, and receive something else that you need.
And then one of the things I think people overlook in preparedness is being healthy. Can you talk to us a little bit about the benefits of growing your own food versus the mass-produced GMO Franken-food we buy at the grocery?
And that's essentially why I wanted to grow my own food to begin with. I grew up around the highest quality produce you could buy. And, what a telltale sign, at least for one of the vegetables, is, strawberries. Strawberries, I would receive strawberries, and literally they were picked that morning, and I would turn around and sell them an hour later. And when you bite into a fresh strawberry, it's red all the way to the core. You buy a strawberry from the store, and you bite into it, and 80% of it's white. That basically means that it didn't have enough time to sit on the vine, and it didn't have enough time to get the sugar content that is supposed to be in the fruit, and it didn't have time to mature. And that's the case with really all produce. Because we're shipping it halfway across the world, they're picking it early. They're, gassing it in a warehouse to gain back some of the color, and it's lacking the nutritional value. So growing your own food, especially if the soil is, has the nutrition that it needs, then your plants will flourish. They will be healthier, and ultimately you eating and juicing, that produce, you'll ultimately, feel that benefit as well.
And what you mentioned, strawberries, is that something that you're able to produce in your system?
Yeah, I mean, you can grow anything in them. I haven't personally done strawberries yet, but that is on my list of something that I'd like to try, because I too was in an apartment. So this last year, I had a bigger apartment balcony, but I was still limited to about 6 of my containers. And just yesterday, I was finishing moving to the other side of town, where I will have land, I will have plenty of space, and I will be hopefully having about 20 of my refuge gardens, set up. So that will give me an opportunity to really expand, what I can personally grow in them, and really start living, off the land.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I always like to try to encourage folks to do is a lot of us are, whether it's for family or mostly for jobs, most of us are tied to some type of a population center. So a lot of us aren't able to just move out to the country. But what a lot of people are able to do is they could take a little bit longer commute and get out to the suburbs or the sort of the perimeter of an urban area, and they may be able to get a little yard for the same price that they were paying for an apartment that was in the center of town. And you have to take that trade off for the longer drive time, but just to kind of put that buffer zone to not be in the middle of an urban center, I think I think that it's worth it for that commute. And of course, I work from home, so I don't have to commute. So that's probably a lot of people are probably listening to me in their car right now and saying, "No, this is horrific." But if the stuff ever hits the fan, I think that they'll be glad that they're not right downtown. And to have that little bit of space to where you can have 10 or 20 something like your container systems to produce a higher amount of your own food. I think that you're going to get the payoff now in having those fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet right now.
Correct.
And then also that peace of mind that you'll be able to produce something on your own in a crisis scenario.
Yeah, and what I would encourage anybody to do is, and this is what I started 5 years ago, every year I would choose another 1 or 2 or 3 items to learn how to grow. And if every year you're learning how to grow 1 to 3 more, types of fruit or vegetable, that over time that really compounds, and you can really get the knowledge base that you need to be, to sustain yourself.
Yeah, that's true. And I try to do that. We just moved from South Florida to Central Florida, so it's a little bit different environment here. But one of the things that I could grow in either place it's just kind of like a no-brainer is green beans. I don't have to think about green beans. They're always going to come up. They're always going to produce. And I'm always going to be able to save some portion of them to have seeds for the next lot. Mustard greens just grow like weeds, and if you let them sit out there until they bolt, they're a little spicy to eat raw, but we either saute them or we stew them with like a ham bone or something like that to and have them with like cornbread and beans and stuff, because I'm originally from Kentucky, so that was like kind of like a staple there is mustard greens and turnip greens and things like that. But mustard greens here is very, very easy to grow. Tomatoes are kind of hit and miss. And I've found that especially in like a box garden or a small garden, I've found that like the smaller tomatoes, the cherry tomatoes and little plum tomatoes and things like that seem to do better than the big ones, especially if you got a lot of bugs. Because, if you've got 10 tomatoes and a bug finds one of the little bitty ones, it's not as bad as if you've only got 2 tomatoes on a vine and a bug gets one. He got 50% of your crop instead of 10% of your crop. And the birds kind of seem to do the same thing. They get out there and they like to pick the seeds out of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just went to a container gardening, just kind of a local event in the city. It was done by a master gardener. And he confessed that 95% of the people in the room had a really, really hard time growing tomatoes last year because of how much it rained and just the different dynamics that were happening. And I was like, one of two people that raised their hand that said that they had an amazing tomato crop, and that was because of the system that I used.
Yeah, because you get a lot less bugs with the container system, right?
I think so. I mean, you're number one, you're raising, you're all the soil is contained, so you're not just having ground level, plants. And then number two, you choose the placement, and because you choose the placement of it, you can get around your plant easier. The easier you can get around the plant, the easier you can monitor it for, caterpillars or different things that would grow up and eat off of your tomato plant. So I think that's key. And then there are natural things that you can do to a plant to prevent pests. There's solutions where you can use like a dish soap mixed with like garlic or things like that, or even like diatomaceous earth and dust your plants with it. So I think those are a few things that I've implemented. If you have it in a spot where you can get to it and you can get around the entire plant, it's so much easier to monitor. And then just learn just a few basics of some natural, insect repellents. And between both of those, I think you can really kind of tackle the issue of pests pretty well.
And then another thing I meant to mention that was real easy for us to grow in South Florida and Central Florida are the mixed field greens, like the mesclun mix. That does really good as long as it's not like in June, July, and August when the sun's just really beating it. That stuff doesn't really like the real hot sun. But the rest of the year, we can pretty much get that stuff. So out of those four things, if I could only produce those four things, that would add a whole lot of vitamins and something green in my diet and fiber and just a lot of good stuff to add to where if we were stuck, we wouldn't be eating just beans and rice.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Atlanta. That's going to be April 23rd and 24th. It's called the Atlanta Preparedness Expo, and that's going to be at the Cobb Galleria. My booth's going to be the one with the big black and red Prepper Recon banner, and I'm sure your booth's going to be pretty easy to recognize as well. Is that right?
Yeah, you'll see containers everywhere and a big white and green sign, and it should be easy to see. I'm also going to be in the Mother Earth News Fair show coming up April 9th and 10th in North Carolina.
Very cool.
That's going to be fun.
And then for folks that can't make it to an expo, what's your website? www.urbanrefugegardening.com. And once in a while, we get a chance to do something that will really bring us benefits, whether society falls apart or not. And I think growing some portion of your own food is one of those things. So, Jason, thanks so much for offering this clever solution, and thanks for making time to come on the show.
Sure. Thank you.
In 7 Cows, Ugly and Gaunt, Book 1, Behold Darkness and Sorrow, Daniel Walker begins having prophetic dreams about the judgment coming upon America for rejecting God's word. Through one of his dreams, Daniel learns of an imminent threat of an electromagnetic pulse attack, sending the country into a technological dark age. If they want to live, Daniel and his friends must focus on faith, wits, and preparation to be ready before the lights go out. Buy your copy of 7 Cows, Ugly and Gaunt, Book 1, Behold Darkness and Sorrow, by best-selling author Mark Goodwin, in paperback, Kindle, or audio edition from Amazon.com today.